Good morning, good afternoon, respectively, if you're on the East Coast, and welcome to the remix of this webinar. The title of it is Harnessing the Power of the Convention. The reality is, we could retitle it and say Harnessing the Power of Any Major Event. This could be true of a local school, a weekend school, anything where you gather your team and energize them, as we did at the convention. And one of the interesting things about big events is that they inspire people. It causes increased commitment. It causes a bigger vision for a while. The challenge is we come back and let's go to the first slide. It comes back and we look at what I call easy energy. Any major event provides easy energy. And when I say easy energy is that you just have to sit there and you get energized, you get excited. On the breaks you're with teammates and you go eat and you talk about the things you thought were cool and you get a chance to do the same thing. Then you go back in and sit there again and more people energize you and then you do the same and there's an analogy I want to give called the hot sun or the warm sun analogy, and that if you put a pot of water out in the desert on the hottest day of the summer, I don't know what the hottest desert and the hottest day would be, 130, 135, or something like that, and that'll make the water hot, but it won't boil it. In time it'll evaporate it, but it won't boil it. And it's interesting because there's only so much people on the stage, there's only so much talks can do, and to heat up your people. But still, if it was a great event, and that's like a hot summer day in the desert, your people are, let's say freezing's 32, they might be 125 degrees. And that's a whole lot better than freezing. It's a whole lot better than 50 or 60 or 70 degrees, in the analogy. But at the same time, the problem with the sun, in terms of continuous heat, is that the world turns and the sun goes down. And all of a sudden now we got dark night in the desert, nights get cold typically. And it's one or the other. And it's kind of like when we leave the event, we come home, and we come home to the same quote-unquote mundane life that we left. It doesn't mean our lives are mundane, but we're doing the same things over and over again. And now we go and we invite our friends, we're all excited, and some don't show up, or somebody still says no, and a client changes their mind, and all the same stuff that you've got to face in building your business that requires mental toughness and all. That doesn't give you easy energy, right? That's tough stuff. And the sun goes down when you get out of the event. And so there's an issue in maintaining a certain level of energy after a major event so that you harness it and get the most out of it for your people. And so how do you put the fire under your teammates? Because to come back to that pot of water in the desert, you could be sitting there at night in the winter on the coldest night. It could be 20 below. And if you get a little fuel together and stick it right under the pot and light it, you can get that water to boil on a winter night. It's something it won't do on the hottest day of the summer with the sun. And the reason for that is, of course, obviously the sun is a nuclear furnace putting out unbelievable amounts of energy, and all you did is take some wood and stuff and stick it up underneath a pot on a little campfire, and you got it to boil. The reason is it's specific to that pot, and I said, so how do you put a fire directly into the butt of your people on a regular basis so that they get warm, stay warm, and get even hotter than they are when they're in the event? And hotter in the sense that they do more, they stick longer, and, you do it right, it's a career. And they're with you for years, decades. Like I've been in business with Kent and others on this phone. So what does that? Let's talk about it. Point one. everybody needs a written plan. One of the things that's terribly underestimated, and that's because most people aren't doing the things it takes, to really cause themselves to win. One of the things that we do to ourselves, starting in our infancy, and of course we have people who program us and we program ourselves. Usually it starts with others, then we take over. It's parents, it's friends, it's teachers. And they start programming us to think a certain way. Sadly, most of them aren't programmed very well, so they don't do a very good job of programming us, not in a winning way. We hear no, and we hear why we can't do stuff, and why we shouldn't be excited, and, this kind of thing, even ridiculed by people when we are pumped up, and so we start pulling into ourselves and holding back and limiting ourselves. And one of the things that helped me overcome all of that programming in me, because I had plenty of it, my parents hadn't made any money, and they were very good people and taught me right from wrong and honesty from dishonesty, critical things. They didn't teach me how to win big. They didn't have any way of showing me how to make a lot of money, save a lot of money. These are things that never happened to them. But I got around some people that did, and one of them, the most successful of them all, a man named Art Williams, said, "Rich, you got to have a written plan." And he talked about his written plan and what he put in it, and I took it seriously, and I sat down and did the work, and it really is work, and what goes into it and all. And so we're going to talk about that in a minute. But everybody needs a written plan. You need to get it programmed, get yourself programmed right, and in order for you to maintain your intensity, maintain your focus, maintain your success, which maintains your enthusiasm. And also with that, two things that are part of a written plan in the context of the goals we set and the focus we need to have is our own personal recruiting activity. That's when we personally recruit and our teammates underneath our personal recruits recruit. That's like putting a fire underneath our rear end, right underneath our pot. And so you can have everybody else be ice cubes around you, but if you're doing that, you got a written plan, you got personal recruiting activity, you're going to be excited. You're going to be on fire. I remember when I first started a business and I went out and we got a bunch of recruits. I had double-digit recruiting, personal recruiting the first month, went out and wrote a bunch of business that first month license, and nobody was doing anywhere near what I was doing in the office I was in. It was a brand new office, only a couple months old. But I was all fired up, and I was excited. It didn't matter what they were doing. I didn't care if they were, it's just because we had things on the move. I had a fire under me. The other thing that, of course, as I mentioned, that does it is your personal sales activity. So I went out there, recruited, sold, and of course, along with beginning to get the basics of my written goals up, I haven't had that talk with my leader yet, but these three things energize me today. I know if I want to get fired up, get better, be more effective, I've got to get stuff in writing. I've got to have my goals, my savings goals, my recruiting goals, my sales goals, my team production goals, my promotion goals, not only for me, but how many SMDs I'm going to promote, all that stuff. I've got to get written along with some motivational things that I have in there that inspire me. And things that I have written in there to help me become a better person. And when I did these things, and when you do these things and make sure your people are doing these things, you can get the fire directly under your teammates. This may sound obvious, and daggone it, we're not doing enough of it. And so that's why we're going to emphasize it. So let's take a look. First statement, everybody needs a plan. And let's talk about the 6 things. I'll go over them one at a time that you got to have in a plan. I would guess most of the people on this call, the people listening to this, you don't have a plan. You have some general ideas. Maybe you got a couple of things posted, that you want, and or maybe you've got it down for a month, but what's your savings goal for the entire year? What did you need to be at July 1st at midpoint? Same kind of thing for leadership development. How many leaders are you going to develop this year? How many senior associates? How many MDs, SMDs? What were you going to develop? Did you have that down? If you didn't, why not? don't you think it increase your chances if you have that down? You know, and so specifically, what do you want? You know, you got to have that down in a number of areas of life. You might be talking about, what do I want in terms of yourself becoming a better person? I want to be more enthusiastic every day. I want to be more compassionate. I want to pay attention more to my teammates and, you know, be there more for them. Whatever it was, right? What kind of things I'm going to be more positive and be more upbeat in my conversations with people. And so you put down those things. One of the things I had written into my plan was, when I was communicating with my teammates, I wanted to make sure that they felt better when I was done talking to them than before I started talking to them. And because of that, it would come back into my mind while I was talking to them and remind me to stay upbeat and say positive things to them and encouraging things and praise them for the good things about them. You know, if they've been doing well, really, you know, make it a conversation of recognition. When I was telling them how proud of them, how special I thought they were. You know, me writing that in a plan made me do it much better because it constantly came back to my mind. And as that did, I would do it. As I did it, I got better at it and built more of a habit. It all had its seed in the plan. So by reminding myself of this thing, reading this thing religiously, which I'll talk about in the 6 steps here, but you've got to get specifically what you want. There is great power in being specific. You've got to be specific. Your mind will not grab hold of vague concepts. I want lots of recruits. I want lots of money saved. That doesn't have any power to your mind. And so you've got to have specific things down. What do you want in the terms of what do you want to become? What do you want in the business? What do you want? You could have some things about your spiritual life in there. What do you want in terms of your, you know, things in your marriage, your family? You could write all those kind of things into a plan as reminders. And that's cool. Next, coming back to specifics. I like that. Sorry, we meant to put that cartoon up first. That's a dog with a specific goal. When do you want it? All right, because now you need a deadline. It's kind of like if you had there's a football field. Let's say they designed the first football field at about 100 acres of land, and there was no end zone. In other words, you kind of pass out in front of the guys, and you just kept running. Be a dumb game. You know, the guy, you just keep running. You're just gone. People can't even see you anymore. That's what it'd be like to have a game without a deadline, so to speak. You know, 4 bases to run. You know, and you only have to run it once for a home run. You know, and so you've got to know when you want it. So I would say, I want to have this many recruits and I'd say by the end of September, right? September 30. And it'd be 25 recruits in my base or 50 in my base. And we wanted to have this many points, this much production. And I would all have a deadline. I did my production, my recruiting monthly. I would do leadership development more of an annual basis. I wanted to produce 10 first-generation SMDs this year. You know, whatever it was, I had that down. I would have my goals down for the income I wanted to accumulate by the end of the year. But in my mind, I knew that if I wanted to save $500,000, my odds would be greatly increased if I was $250,000 by the middle of the year. So whatever those things were, I don't mean to use numbers that are too big. You adjust it to whatever you're doing. And so, you know, these are the things that you want to have, and these are the times you want it. So you know what you want. You're already well ahead of the rest of humanity at that point. You know when you want it. Now you're really ahead. Right? Now we got to go to, since there's no such thing as something for nothing, you got to write in your plan what you're willing to give in return. Because if you're not reminding yourself with a sacrifice, you fatigue. You give up sooner. You aren't as mentally tough. And you want to be strong. And so I wrote down early on, I was willing to give 6 days and nights a week. You know, Monday through Saturday. Give it all I had. All the energy I had. You know, we discussed it, Cindy and I as a family. You know, in the early years, she was right there by my side. You know, for our children, we had children, they got a little bit older, but then she was holding the fort. Did that mean they never saw me for those 6 days? Don't be silly. I had breakfast. If I needed to clear a little time, I did. If I could get home for dinner, we actually moved the office closer to the house because of that when our children were a little older. And so that I could be there, just 45 minutes of dinner was a big deal. And then we were there. And then Dad was back out in the field and they did their homework and hit the sack. And, but I just, I'm not talking about being out of balance, but you gotta have a stretch of time. You gotta have an era in your life if you're going to really be successful where you give something everything you got. You build so much in such a condensed period of time, it becomes explosive. But I wrote that down. I knew what I was doing. I knew why I was doing it. And I got ready to do it. So now I had specifically what I wanted, down. I had when I wanted it by. They had those deadlines. So as I was coming up on a deadline, I didn't have it. I could pour it on, and I wouldn't have done it without the deadline. And then I'd written down what I was willing to give in return. I had to put what I was willing to sacrifice or I wasn't going to be tough enough. Then I had to figure out how I was going to get it. The beauty of it, by the time that I had gotten in an environment that caused me to work on a plan, I was in a company and an opportunity, and so I knew how I was going to get it. If I was just talking to general population right now, we gathered 1,000 people off the street, and they're working at wherever, they're not going to, they set some big goals, they don't have a vehicle to get it. Those of us on this call, we're very fortunate, right? Because we have a way to get it. But some of you are not clear enough. Many of you, and I hazard most, aren't really clear on how you're going to get it. And so now it comes down to, understanding the system. But the how part is going to include, I'm going to get this many personal recruits in this span of time. I'm going to create this kind of consistent activity in the field. I am going to, as a team, we are going to, recruit this many this month and this many next month and this many the month after that. This is the leadership we're going to develop from it. And I'm going to run great meetings and we're going to do a great job with our interviews and we're going to do a great job with our contact. And these are things I got to remind myself about contact. And these are the things that we got to do with prospect lists. And I got to remind myself that I'm going to stay on the team about teaching them how to do a great list and, and the quality of people so that we get the right kind of people. So we build with strength. And I'm going to get all of that stuff down. And this again, remember the original titles, how we keep a fire underneath people. Well, first place, you got to build up fires underneath your own butt. So you better do this. You're sure not going to be catching anybody else on fire if you're sitting there as an ice cube. And so how are you going to get it? If you're not sure, you talk to leadership and you get clear. And how to run this system. And so some teams have slightly different terminology, but it's still basically the same system. And you got to have it in front of you. You got to know what you're doing from the moment you recruit a person. What do you do with that person with a list? What do you do with the contact? What do you do? You understand what do you treat? Anyway, all of that stuff. And so you get that down. Now you know what you want, when you want to buy, in a number of areas in your life. You put down what you're willing to sacrifice, what you're willing to give in return. You now have clear in front of you how you're going to get it. Wow, are you in a different place? You are in such a different place than 99.9% of humanity. It's interesting. I stood up in front of teams of thousands teaching this stuff, and then I go into specifics of developing a plan. And I need to do a webinar just on how to really get clear. How do you do it? What does it look like? What does it sound like? And so I will do a webinar follow-up on developing and maintaining a written plan with great detail. Let's stay here a little more generic. I've stood up in front of thousands of people and taught this, knowing full well after I'd done really an excellent job. There's a bunch of stuff I'm not that good at, but one of the things I'm really good at is this. And I taught it, and I knew most of them weren't even going to go back after sitting 3 or 4 hours listening to me. They weren't going to go back and do it. I mean, they're just going to go back to their life. They'd have every intent. Maybe they'd make some notes, and then life would set in again, and then they'd get a cold. And once again, somebody wouldn't come down, or their manager wasn't nice, leader wasn't nice to them, and next thing you know, nothing happened. And so there's great power in this. By the way, nobody showed me how to do it. I got to page 36 of Think and Grow Rich, and it had in there, it talked about just money goals. I wasn't that comfortable just thinking about money, so I translated into recruiting and production and, leadership development and personal development, and then I felt comfortable using those same principles. I just don't want to think about money. There's a lot more in life, and so I broadened it and applied it, but I just took that page and developed my own plan. Nobody sat me down. All my leader told me was I needed to do one. And he said he'd use Think and Grow Rich, page 36. So I got the book, used page 36, and developed this. And this changed my life. It gave me a focus. It gave me an on-target message. It gave me a sharpness, an organizational capacity, because I was programming right. And the fifth one, and put 5th and 6th up there, is you put it in writing. Guys, if you can't get it in writing, it's not clear enough. So I put all the above in writing, and then I'd read it twice a day with enthusiasm, pumped up, visualizing getting the recruits, visualizing the production, visualizing the leaders I was developing, visualizing the money I'd saved, visualizing me being a more excited, enthusiastic, positive person, a more giving person, a more thoughtful person, visualizing me being a better husband, a better father, what I would do, all of that stuff. And it was almost scary how much it empowered me. It made me nervous because there were times when I put a little bit too much orientation on the business in my plan, and I was fanatical, and so I was careful what I aimed it at. I made sure that only real worthy things were written there. And but I did put competitive things in there about wanting to be the best of best and a world champion, and gosh, it brought it to me. And it's a wonderful thing. So you can't do what the dog's just doing, just thinking about it, just having this that's what most people are like, kind of just have a little dream up there in the air. This brings it out of the air, out of intangible, into written, right? Clearly, deadline, the price you're willing to pay, how you're going to get it. The dog doesn't know how he's going to get that turkey right there. And maybe he does. Maybe it's Thanksgiving. Anyhow, these are the things you do in developing a plan. Now, let's talk about the second bullet point I put on the first page, personal recruiting activity. 1, our teammates, starting with us, need to be selling the dream every day. It's interesting. I watch people come in and out of commitment to selling the dream. As if there was something else that we could do that would inspire us. I was reading in a book last night, and it was talking about civilizations being established. And it is interesting, it said, it was talking about the development of the United States in the West as the pioneers expanded. And it said, bullets and arrows could stop armies, but it couldn't stop men and women with dreams. And I just pondered that a minute when I read that simple sentence. Bullets and arrows could stop armies, but they couldn't stop men and women with dreams. And the pioneers just kept coming, and just kept coming. They might get burned out, or a storm tears up their, whatever, and they just kept coming. And they kept doing it and kept doing it until our country was settled from coast to coast. And our teammates need to be selling the dream. The dream, what is the dream? It's always personalized. When I first started in the business, I was passionate about one of the things Cindy and I sat down on our honeymoon. We wrote this very cool thing. We sat down at dinner on our honeymoon, a couple of days on our honeymoon, and we wrote 5 things down on a napkin. If you've heard her talk, she references it. But one of the things we wrote down is that we wanted, to find a business we could be in together. Another thing we wrote down was, the kind of home we wanted to have, not just what it looked like or its physical aspects, but the harmony and the love, the things. We started talking about that. And we talked about, anyway, number of things. We talked about the faith we wanted to develop. We both weren't churchgoers at that point. We wanted to become that. And so we wrote that down. But one of the things, too, that I wanted is that when we started our family, I didn't want Cindy to have to work. Now, different people feel differently about that, but I ain't writing yours, I'm writing mine. And so that was something that was real passionate for me. And so when I talked to people, I was making contact with them. I talked about how right in our honeymoon, Cindy and I talked about her being a stay-at-home mom and devoting herself to the most important thing that happens on the planet, and that's raising the next generation, and how I wanted to be in support of her and our children and that home and that environment because I knew she'd be the heart of it, and that was a dream of mine. And I wasn't making enough money doing what I was doing, working at San Jose State, and I needed to find something. And when I found this opportunity, when I talked to people, I said, this is it. This is how I'm going to make that happen. This is how we're going to have the best kind of family life. And another thing I talked about is I couldn't stand the politics I had at work. If you work in a state bureaucracy, any kind of bureaucracy like that, man, there's just backbiting and politics and gossiping, and it just drives you crazy. My boss had told me to do something once, and I went and did it. And then he got in trouble for doing it. He said, well, I didn't tell him to do it. The guy denied that he told me to do it. He just leg whipped me in front of the big bosses. And I'm like, unbelievable. And I resolved, obviously, at that moment, man, I wanted to get away from that kind of thing. I wanted to get away from that dishonesty, that lack of integrity. I wanted to find myself surrounded with great people, that I had built, not that got shoved down my throat. And I talked about that as one of my dreams. I talked about getting out of debt because we had a lot of debt and I wanted it paid off. And so these were some of my dreams that I talked about all the time when I was talking to people about the business. I talked about Cindy not having to work and the best kind of family life and getting out of debt, not facing the politics at work and being so frustrated and miserable all the time. And I wanted to be somebody. And then I'd say, but does any of that stuff interest you? And people say yes. And that would be true of my teammates. It'd be true of the people in the general marketplace as we were talking to them. We've got to be selling the dream every day. Just hearing that stuff energizes me. It energizes you. What are the 3 or 4 things that energize you, that are part of your dreams? And that evolves. Obviously, Cindy hasn't had to work, so I don't talk about that one quite the same as I did in the beginning. Now we had achieved that. But there are other things I talk about. And the bottom line is that we got to be selling the dream every day. You do, then the temperature of your water is going to be warmer. If you don't, it's going to start getting cold. This is one of the things that puts heat into your organization, that harnesses the power of an event as you keep selling the dream. Right? Yeah? Now, let's talk about recruiting people personally. And I'm going to go a little bit of how-to here of what I do in a quality one-on-one recruiting presentation. And, of course, I wait till I finish. Maybe I shouldn't have put quality up there. Maybe you won't think it's quality, but I think it's quality, so I'm going to give it my best shot. Hope you do too. Now, sorry, I'm sipping something as I go here. If you already have something you think is a great one-on-one recruiting presentation, maybe I'll add a couple of thoughts to it, but don't change it. But if you're not organized in your thoughts about a good one-on-one recruiting presentation, I'm going to talk about the things that we do. And you know what? I'm a pretty effective personal recruiter. So let's look at it. 1, I talk about the right company with the right values. I always start out with that. I talk about the kind of people we're looking for, people of character, with good personal relationships, have good mileage in their life, where they've been doing the right things over an extended period of time. I talk about a company that's like totally dedicated to helping people most of the rest of this industry won't help. An industry that has faded, in their commitment to the little guy in the United States and Canada. And we're a different kind of company. We're looking to help those folks. We're proud of it. We're excited about it. We love the difference it makes in their lives. But the right company, the right values, in our organization, we just work by referral because we believe in trust relationships. And I talk about trust relationships and the power of them, and I make a connection with people right up front on the values. I talk about how we don't try to sell on the first visit. These kinds of things, because we respect people and we want to do the right job and we want to build a real personal relationship, and we don't think those things can be rushed. These are all reflections of our values. And so I want to make a connection first on values. Second thing, and I'm just 6 here, I'm going to talk about how we've got the right products and how dramatic the market need is. You know what, you guys, I've been in this business 31 years, and I have never seen the quality of the product mix that we have in our company today. And it is an energizing thing for me. I can't wait to talk about this kind of stuff when I'm in front of people. About the good we're doing in managing money, the great things we're doing, you know, with our index products and you know, with the active story, and I mean, even just term and a Roth, and I mean, the tax advantages of life insurance, and you know, and how much I believe in what's happened there, and the rate of return over an extended period of time, and the guarantees that back it up, and that's true in variable annuities with their guarantees, and they can, you know, you can have, you know, fixing points. I mean, it's just, I don't know if you can go through the details of the product stuff here, but there's so much cool stuff. I have to be careful not to talk about it too much, right? But a company, when you're starting and talking to somebody about it, I said, look, if you and I were starting a company today, we've known each other a long time, when we were starting a business, we want some things going for us. And these are the things that we have going for us. And I talk about the right company, the right values. Then I talk about the right products and how dramatic the market need is. You know, with a marketplace that is so terribly underserved. And then I talk about the company, the right system. You know, and I have my McDonald's analogies, you know, that kind of stuff. And you have a systematic approach, and you have a winning way, just like a Walmart does, and we've got a great business model. Now, I met with kind of a high-end guy. Guy had been a manager in a hedge fund and some stuff yesterday. And I was going through the marketing, and he said, well, how in the world do you distribute products to that marketplace and make it profitable? There's enough incentive for people to do it. And boy, I lit him up talking about the model, the right system. You know, the use of part-timers and the power of that. And how much better it works with part-timers. You get a better quality person that's already working, and they, you know, and they're solid, and so part-time income is sufficient, and they build better relationship with the consumer because they're not having to do high-pressure tactics, and, you know, and that means a better block of business, and, you know, and he's, you know, by the time I was done, he goes, wow, that is interesting. You know, and I don't mean just the system with steps or system flow, but I mean the model itself along with the system. You know, it's kind of an A and B for me. And I've got the model with the concept and the vision of bringing thousands of people into our industry, not a few hundred like the rest of the industry thinks about. And so then I talk about, you know, what we've got in backing, the financial support, the administration, the platform we got that provides the technology and the record keeping, and they're the paymaster, and they, you know, they have the agent, they have the agency and the broker dealer, and they got our backs, and you know, with you know, all this stuff, and you know, and they, you know, if you got a bunch of 1099s at the end of the year, they do all that and get them out to our people, and they free up all of that stuff from us so we can go build a business. See, I don't know what you talk about when you talk about a company. These are some of the things that business people and people at Business Inclined want to hear. You know, and there's enough work to do just on the marketing side, as we all know, without having to worry about all of that stuff too. And sometimes we complain about it a little bit, but try and do it all yourself and figure out how much you'd be complaining. You know, and so, gosh, to have what we have with Compass and a needs analysis and all these things being provided, and like the relationship with Crump now, and all those products being available, and negotiating with the other companies so that we have these product relationships. And I know, because I've negotiated those things before. I've been in the company where we had to build all of that, you know, and I know how much work it is to maintain. And then with one of them, you don't do enough, and they drop you. And that's why we have Crump, so that we, you know, don't run into that situation. These are all things that provide us a tremendous platform. Fifth thing we have going for us is timing. You know, I mean, the reality is I started my first business in 1980. We had double-digit inflation and stagflation and gas lines and, gosh, all kinds of problems. A few years into it, the savings and loan system collapsed in the United States, and gosh, things were all kinds of a mess, and we just blew it up. This model accelerates during bad times because people aren't complacent anymore. More people need part-time income. More people are willing to work harder to get it than they are during good times. From a consumer standpoint, people are frustrated. They're tired of losing money. You know, I was in the field last night talking to somebody, and and the night before. You know what? They're sick of losing money. You know, that they wanted more help, and nobody would help them. And there we were. You know, and anyway, I love this business. I love talking about it. I love talking about it too much. I got to keep moving here. Next one. Then I talk to them after timing. I talk about how they got to bring personal commitment. One of the things I feel like maybe we don't do a good enough job of, when I'm talking to people, it's like too many times I feel like you're pleading with them. Oh, come on, join. Oh, this is so wonderful. Well, I like finishing up talking about what they got to bring to the table. When I'm down to decision-making time, I'm going to talk to them about the personal commitment they've got to have. How they just can't dream it in their head and have it happen. They got to show up, and they got to be part of the meetings, and then we're going to have to go in the field, and they're going to have to do a list, and they're going to have to go get their license. They're going to have to stay on top of this stuff. That if they're not going to at least get through licensing so they can get out and get a little bit of revenue, I don't even want them to start. You know, and I just want them to give us referrals. You know, and then we'll go help people who are willing to make a personal commitment. And so I talk about what they got to bring to the table. I think that's honest. I think it also probably click. Well, I watch it click with most people, because anybody who's thinking right at all would want to know that I expected them to step up, because that's what leaders do. And there's an instinctive response to leadership. You know, Monty Holmes would ask a question, do you want weak leadership or strong leadership from me? That's another way of talking about the same thing. Well, if you want strong leadership, great. Then here's what you got to do. And this is what I'm going to expect. And that's a good thing. So a quality one-on-one recruit presentation has to be, you talk about the right company, the right values, the right products, how dramatic the market need is for them, the right system, the financial support and the backing administration we've got, the incredible timing, but they got to bring commitment to the table. Then, by the way, I kind of wind up talking about the values again. Because all of this, no matter how dramatic the need is, how great your system and model is, how awesome the support is, how powerful the timing is, you don't have the right values, you're going to screw it up. You'll mess up your relationships, right? You'll mess it up with the consumer, you'll mess it up with your team, and nothing will come from it. So you got to be built on the right values. And so I just wanted to help you organize your thoughts, perhaps. You could brainstorm for some of the specifics you wanted to put in there. But these are the things we talk about in the order in which we talk about it. And it's pretty dang effective. I can do this in 10 or 15 minutes. I can take an hour to do it. Depending how long I want to develop it, how long I take is according to how much time I have. I don't want to take 2 hours to do it. That's too long. You wear it out. Okay. Now let's talk about personal sales activity. Right? The third of the three things. You keep a fire underneath our butt. We're reading the plan. We're creating that activity. We have confidence out there in our recruiting and helping our people recruit. Because most of the times I'm giving that presentation, there's somebody I'm showing how to give that presentation. A one-on-one recruiting presentation. One of their people on their list. And I love it. Now, let's talk about sales activity. And the first thing you got to do. Never stop selling your teammates on how important our work is. If you're not building crusaders, you're not building. People have got to understand how powerful this stuff is. When I came back from the field Monday night, man, I was all excited to talk to Cindy about how much good we were going to do. This single mom with 4 children who had inherited some money, and she had, anyway, I was jacked up about what we were going to do for them. And I was field training somebody on it. And it was awesome. I love this stuff. And I couldn't wait to talk about the next night we had a training blitz. And I talked about some of the, just how I felt about it and just how these things go. And I never stopped selling our teammates on how important the work is and what a big deal it makes. I pointed to some people in the room. They're on the team that, been around us a while, that have been in our products, and I asked them what it had done for them versus what they'd been done before. And there were some powerful testimonies there of how much good it had done. You could just feel the temperature rise in the room, and the energy about it. Because people want to believe. They have to believe. Our kind of people have to believe. Well, wow, do we have some stuff to believe in. I'm so proud of this stuff. And so really, I've already made this point, but constantly show them real life examples. I don't mean the name and all the specifics. That's confidential stuff. But you can talk about it in general concepts like I just did. You know, and I love doing that because, it makes my heart beat faster. Pulse and respiration increases. You know, and when I think about real life stuff where we're making the difference. You know, one of the things that when I first started a business selling term insurance, all the real life examples had to be when they were really dead. You know, and in other words, they used to have 100,000 coverage. We put 300,000 on them, and they got 200,000 more for that family, or 400,000 more for that family. Would turn them over the lousy stuff that the industry used to sell back 30 years ago. You know, and certainly I could show them the examples. Look, they used to have this, and they did have this. But the real power of it was when, of course, there was a death claim. Well, I love this because there's so much we do with all the living issues, with their money and saving it and protecting it. And that we've got a ton of real life examples that aren't just that. Though the other, you know, death claims still have great power too, where there wasn't coverage, now there was, and this is a big deal. But I just love all aspects of our real life examples. So, how much of that are you doing? If you're not doing it, your teams aren't going to be passionate enough. So start doing it, right? And keep telling them, keep selling them, and how important the work is. See, I'm going to challenge you, like you've got to challenge them, to be messengers worthy of the message. What we do says so much good. It secures futures. It pays off debt. It educates children. It teaches correct principles that parents are able to pass on to children, their children, their children, their children, their children. Don't think it doesn't if you do the job right. Especially the people who come around the business and spend time around us. They start putting these principles to work in their life, and they're doing the right things with their money. And then they teach their children that and show them both by example and by teaching. You know, and then those children will be better armed. And of course, they'll be better parents with those principles. I mean, you might be sitting at a table thinking you're just talking somebody up and walking out there with a sale, and you may have impacted the next 100 years of that family's existence. Don't think that's not possible. Part-time music teacher walked into our home, sold us a little term policy, and taught us some money principles, you know, rule of 72, time value, and all that jazz, and the power of different rates of return. I started saving a little bit of money, and that that started a lifelong habit. Now I've got my son sitting next to me, and he's got a bunch of money saved. You know, and now he lives by that example. My daughter does. I mean, this is, you know, and they're going to pass that on to their children. And it's because a part-time the part-time guy in our industry, a full-time high school music teacher, came into our home. The guy was only in the business 8 months. But he changed my life. He changed my children's lives. We didn't have children yet. I know he's going to change their grandchildren's life. That guy's 80-something now. You know, still have contact with the family. I mean, he's in my top 5, 6, 7 guys that have impacted my life. And he was only around me a little bit. But that's the power of truth. That's the power of correct principle, well taught. And he taught it well and enthusiastically. And it changed everything. You need to be messengers worthy of your message. Don't get short-sighted. Don't be sitting there at the table calculating your commission. You be thinking about how much this changes people, changes their future, how much better of a life they're going to have by starting to build in these habits. Wow. I mean, this stuff, you know, I start talking about this stuff. I mean, it fires me up. And I mean, this isn't rhetoric, you guys. I'm not just here entertaining you. This is stuff I feel. And the proof is in my career. And how long it's lasted, and that I'm still fired up to do it, and I still love going in the field, you know, and what it means to me. People say, well, you don't have to. Yeah, I do. I have to because I can, and because people need the help. That's why I have to. You know, that's why I'm not sitting on a beach. I'm not going to help anybody there. I guess I can pull somebody in from a riptide once in a while. But I don't swim that well anyway. I'm going to just throw them something. Anyhow, the bottom line is, this is what I do, and I believe in it. Is that true of you? You know, is it true of your team? Can you do more to help them there? Because here's the bottom line. You must build crusaders. See those business people planting the flag on the top of the hill? That's you and me. Right? We're showing the way to an industry that won't help the people we help. Right? We're a different kind of company, doing a different kind of business in a different kind of way, and we're proud of it. We don't, it's nothing, it's the opposite of apologizing for it, right? We're energized by it. All right, let's spend the last bit of time together talking about providing positive leadership and what this means. And so I have 4 slides I want to pound through here. There's a fair amount of kind of bullet points on them. And I want you to, one of the reasons we're shooting this is we had trouble with sound last time, is that so that this stuff could be online and you can reflect on it there. But let's talk about providing positive leadership on an ongoing basis. First, we believe in leadership versus management. Now, this is a little bit of just terminology, but I look at management. I'm going to define management as somebody who kind of sits behind a desk and isn't out there showing the way, isn't recruiting, isn't selling, isn't continuing to set a personal example. If I'm still doing it after this time, then you can do it too. And a leadership is someone who does set the right example. In other words, if you follow what I do, you can win in this business. I mean, you can win as a training rep following what I do. You can win as a big time leader following what I do. That's my responsibility in terms of my leadership example. So really what I'm talking about is example versus telling people. Now we got to tell them and show them if you want to have power in your leadership. Now let's talk about some specifics. WFG leaders care about their people. Now, I don't think you're a leader if you don't. I think you're a user. And that's not anywhere near good enough. And users deserve every value. Out of my character and personality, and I got to remain vigilant on it every day. It's easy to get selfish. We're in a selfish world, and you get hurt a little bit, and all of a sudden you think, well, forget them, and it's easy to turn that direction. But that's not what's going to work. We got to care about our people. Our kind of leaders build strong personal relationships. They open up. They let people know who they are. They're interested in who the other people are. And you find out about their lives and their marriages and their children and their upbringing and their dreams and their hopes. Right? That's all part of building a relationship. You can build a relationship, in a few weeks, deeper than people who've known them for years. If you really have that interest in them, you really ask them, you spend some time. Right? Our kind of leaders stand by their people through good times and bad. Anybody, those are called fair weather friends. Anybody stands by people during good times. Shoot, that takes no effort. There's no need even to stand by people during good times much. It's the bad times that you prove your relationship. You prove your friendship. When I'm not doing so well is where Cindy proves what she means to me in our love and in our marriage. When I'm messing up and she believes in me, and when I'm struggling in the business, this or that, she's always telling me how I'm the best. And, and what has that meant to me through the years? It's meant everything. Well, the same thing is true about us as leaders. And you stand by your people through good times and bad. Our leaders treat people with respect. They don't talk down. They don't act like they're better. I've had leaders that have been that way, and I have leaders that aren't. And boy, I love it when they're in there with you and they look at you as peers, and maybe they know they picked up a few things through their experience that I hadn't picked up, but they were respectful and thoughtful, and hey, let me show you something I found out, and let me tell you how I found this out. You'll find out the same thing, but I've had people go, hey, you'll never be as good as me. Yikes. All right, and that doesn't build. So our kind of people build people with respect. And they involve the partners and families of their team. People in our organization know I care what their spouse thinks. I care how their families, their children feel about their business. We create opportunities where we get together. I create opportunities where I can have conversations with the spouses. I'm meeting with a spouse tomorrow morning of one of our reps, and just there at our home. Cindy, of course, will be there. I wouldn't meet alone, and out of respect for the marriage, of course. I'm not going to have anything suspect that way, but I'm meeting with that person because they just want to get some things clear in their mind of how they can help more and what they can do. And I'm spending that time in a one-on-one coaching, and Cindy's going to be there and provide her even greater insight than mine. And so we involve the partners and families of our team. Why? It builds an organization that's 5 times stronger. And it's also more fun. So let's move on from this slide, continuing to the same thought of providing positive leadership. Now I'm just going to rattle through some stuff. This is meant to be covered kind of fast. WFG leaders motivate and lead. So here are the bullet points I have on motivating and leading. They work with people one-on-one. They're accessible. They're not too busy for their people. They motivate, but they never intimidate. Shame on us if we intimidate. They look for their teammates' strengths. They ignore the weaknesses. I'm not talking about the weakness that steals money or beats people. Those aren't weaknesses. Those are major character flaws, and you're under arrest. That's a different thing. Now I'm talking about we all can procrastinate a little bit, and we're not as excited as we always should be. But I'm going to keep building on your strengths, and I'm going to keep, and keep doing that because that's what's going to lift you, and that's what's going to keep you around. And I actually could spend an hour talking about just that one. All right, but also they set a powerful personal example. I've already talked about that. They stay excited and enthusiastic about the business. And the way you do that is the ways I've been talking about. The way that, you have a plan, you have it written down. You're out there in front of people. You're selling the dream. You're in front of the consumer. And you're crusading and you're showing them the way they can win financially. And that keeps you excited and enthusiastic about the business. I tell you want to go flat, stop getting in front of people and selling the company. You want to go flat, stop getting in front of people and talking about what we do to help them financially. You want to get back excited, you get back serving people. You get back serving your teammates. Serving the consumer. And then you're going to be energized. And they push up their people. My mentor early in the 80s wrote a book called Pushing Up People. It's no longer in print, though there are a few copies floating around still. And it's a great book for that. He says was our responsibility to push people up and to be servant leaders. And I understood it. So look at that and what it means. One-on-one, you're not too busy. You never intimidate. You focus on their strengths. He set a powerful personal example. You're excited and enthusiastic about the business. And you push people up. Think what kind of leader you are when you're doing that. Think how much you'll change lives. Think about doing that in your own homes, with your spouse, with your children, with your grandchildren. Think about it in church if you go to church, you're in church leadership at all. It'd be the same kind of thing, wouldn't it? Right? And this applies to all areas of our life. One other slide, last one, about providing positive leadership. Our WFG leaders do what's right. Now, so if you're not doing what's right, you're not a leader. You're a bum, right? So I don't do a list WFG bums do. I do what our leaders do. All right? And by the way, if you're a real bum, you don't hang around very long. And so WFG leaders do what's right. So here's the intangibles. They're honest. They're sincere. They're loyal to their teammates. They live by their word. You give your word. I watched a guy, and I'm not perfect. I watched a guy on our team, they'll make a serious mistake. He set up a competition in his base. They were going to go do this thing if they did it, but not as many people excelled as he thought. But 3 or 4 of his people qualified, but he was disgusted. He says, we're not going to do anything. It's not enough of you to participate. Well, those 3 or 4 people were bent. Right? Because the guy said, we're going to go do this. We got to live by our word. Right? Next, they put the good of the team above themselves. If you're just thinking selfishly, boy, that team isn't going to be very large around you, and it's going to keep turning over. Because nobody needs selfish people in leadership above them. They got all of that they need already at their regular jobs usually. And so our task is to put the good of the team above ourselves. Constantly go, what can I do to take care of them? And by the way, that'll take care of you. They're crusaders for the consumer. I've certainly been passionate about this in the call. They have strong beliefs and stand for something. when I talked to the convention, I talked about pansies and pansyitis and depansification. Well, pansies don't have strong beliefs. Pansies don't stand for anything. They don't want to put out the effort. Man, they don't want to take any heat. What if somebody disagreed with what I stood for? Well, those of you that know me know I don't worry a lot about that. You know, I just want to make sure what I believe in is right and is true and it's wholesome. You know, if you're talking to me about marriage, I talk to you about fidelity, about being loyal and honest and being dedicated to your sweetheart and never having anybody doubt, especially him or her, that you were 100% loyal, that you were fiercely loyal. You know, bottom line, that you give your life for them. That's something I have a strong belief about. You know, I don't get people who aren't that way. You know, and so that's what I stand for. Some people think I'm kind of a nut. I don't worry about that. I still stand for it. You know, and one of the reasons I can turn around and see people follow me is because of our strong beliefs and because we stand for it. Well, there are a bunch of people who have those same beliefs and want to stand for it too, and our leadership empowers them about doing what's right every time for the consumer. You know, and being a nut about that. And see, these are the things that build strength, that build a sure foundation in relationships, in a family, in a business. And so our best leaders have strong beliefs and they stand for something. They have a total commitment to their people. And last, and I'll sum with this, they dream big and expect to succeed. And, you know, you've heard it, and you've heard it probably 1,000 times. You've been around here a while. You know, if you're going to dream, you might as well dream big. As long as you're dreaming anyway. Dream about some big things accomplished. Lots of people helped. Thousands of people were licensed, right? Thousands of leaders developed. Hundreds of thousands, millions of clients served. You know, I mean, you know, I look up at the arches at McDonald's. Don't eat there very often anymore. As I get older, my body had less tolerance for it. But it says billions and billions served. Well, served in a technical sense. The fact that I shoved food across the counter and you went and ate it, and that's all cool. We really do get a chance to serve. Serve at the family level with what we teach, to serve each other in the business, with the principles we teach in increasing people's confidence and identity, show them how to build a business that will provide for them for the rest of their lives and for the children after that, you know, and where they can't get laid off. You know, it's interesting, I had a friend who went into work yesterday, a fairly sizable company here in the area. They have 1,100 employees. And he showed up for work, and they closed the doors. There's a solar company that our government gave $535 million in loan guarantees. In 2010, and that sucker was gone, you know, a year and a half later. Unbelievable. That's what happened when government gets in the venture capital business with their income. You know, anyway, I'm going off on a sermon. Sorry. But the bottom line is, after that mismanagement and competition in the international market and all that stuff, boom, their life is gone. Career's gone. They were interviewing people on the news and they were shell-shocked. Well, that's never happened to me. It's never going to happen to me. And we employ ourselves. I had to have to lay off myself. Well, that's why I want you to keep your personal recruiting activity, your personal sales activity, and get a plan so you don't lay off yourself by accident, by not staying on top of the things you need to do. All right? But if we have a total commitment to our people and we're dreaming big and expect to succeed and have it written down, good things are going to happen. You know, and so I'm excited about our next webinar, which is in a couple of weeks. Kent, what date is that? You still there? And I don't know if you are. I don't know if you're muted. But either way, we'll get that information out. And my calendar's in the other room, right? I tell you. But anyway, the point is, in fact, Trevor, grab that real quick. And quicker than that. And let me tell you when the next one is. Some of you already know when it is. But I'm excited about doing these. I promised to deliver on the next one too. I'm talking about some capacities that you've got to develop on the next one. And I have it down, actually it's more than a couple of weeks. I have it down that it's the 28th. And, I think we were too close to, Tahiti. That's why we didn't do it the 14th. All right. A bunch of folks are going to be in Tahiti. And so we will do one at the same time on Wednesday, September 28th, end of the month. I'll be excited about that one. I hope you'll feel good about the stuff we cover there. I hope you can use the stuff we put on here. I'm lit up for the next one. I'm also, we're on to some things in contacting people that I think I want to throw in the next one too. And it kind of, where we talk about how we sell the dream and how we talk about the company, and I call it the little commercial that we do, for the business itself. And that's helping our people dramatically. In other words, what does it sound like when you talk to somebody and make contact with them and set an appointment or get them down to a meeting? And maybe we can help some of you get a little bit clearer on that, and help some of you leaders get a little bit clearer on how you want to pass it on to your teammates so they can be confident and have it organized in their mind about what it is they're doing when they're talking to somebody. So there we are. I appreciate the time we spent, and hey, let's go use the stuff we talked about. Let's fire it up. Great talking to you. Talk to you in a few weeks. Bye.